Welcome to Dice and Mind, a podcast hosted by Browne and Jason Kaufman to explore the intersection of life, games, science, music, philosophy, and creativity through interviews with leading creatives. All are welcome in this space.
We talk a lot about high fantasy, but let's be honest, a lot, let's say over 60% of our discussions are related to sci-fi or sci-fantasy based games when we talk games.
Well over 60%, yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, Star Wars, although we haven't talked about that as much lately, and we really should.
We will be coming back.
Yeah.
We will be coming back.
I think
Because as this drops, final season of Bad Batch has just started up again.
Yeah. So there's still, we got the movies that are being talked about that we got to talk about. So we're going to swing back to Star Wars soon. Mm-hmm. Obviously Star Trek, we don't even have to go in there. That's
never
for
heard
anyone
of that.
That listens. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a long time about Traveler, and really the two, there's two forks to, and this is interesting for those that really haven't followed it. And it took me a while to kind of get a feel for it. There is the Far Future Enterprises Traveler, which is what you would consider classic Traveler, developed by Mark Miller.
Right.
And then Mark licensed Traveler to our friends at Mongoose Publishing. Mm-hmm. And they have come out over the years. It wasn't just most recently, but they've come out with an additional version of Travel over the years. Right now, it's in their second edition.
Yeah. Mongoose, and God, do they keep dropping books that look good?
Yeah. I mean, the stuff, the material is so rich. Mm-hmm. It is literally, if any of you are sci-fiers out there, and majority of you are, and you haven't looked at the game, it is worthwhile going out to Drive-Thru RPG. There's a couple of the things that are free.
Yeah.
And it is not the Mongoose, it's the standard Traveler, but you'll get an idea of how rich it is. And even on Facebook, whether it's Mongoose or Classic or any of the other derivatives that are out there, and we could go into those forever, they have discussions about the physics of space travel.
Buckle up, people.
Yeah,
you've
seen this.
You've sent so many of these things to me, and it's like, and you I mean, like anyone who's been listening to this show for more than 4 minutes, right, to Dice and Mind, knows that you've been talking about Traveler for actually probably the better part of a year now.
I would say about 8 months. Which
I remember I'm going to accept as the better part of a year, but that's probably about right. That's probably about right. So mid-year last year, right?
Yeah, so I guess it is the better part of a year.
But you're right. I mean, it's been a while, which is my point. And early in that, you would just routinely send me links to stuff like this, and then with non sequiturs like, how are we only learning about this now?
Yes. I mean, can you imagine? First of all, it would have been stupid for us to look at this game while we were in college.
But I think about that. Like, if we high school and college, like I mean, obviously we wouldn't have known each other for part of that, but like us back then, geek out.
Yeah, problem.
Oh my God.
The problem is I struggled in college even before a game like this.
And not to be crass, but this would have been like a full-on nerdgasm.
Oh yeah. But think about it when you were living when we were both living in town.
Yep.
And we get together, we talk about, and this goes back to why we started this. We would talk for hours about things. Can you imagine if we had interjected Traveler into all this and start talking about the physics of faster than light travel?
It would have fit.
Yeah, it literally is uncanny how this game just appeals to a part of our it's the part of our gaming selves that love sci-fi.
I think it's the same part. I think it's flipping the same switches, to use an anachronism from days back, kids. I think it's the same switches that are being flipped that got you early on, like so a handful of years ago, early on, like when we were both getting back into games, got you into things like Pathfinder, because there's a crunchiness. To put it mildly, there's a crunchiness in Traveler, old and new,
Hmm.
that really gets anyone's cerebral juices flowing, right? Like you just kind of have to sit down with it and swim for a while.
Can you imagine? It came to my attention. If if we had been at the original Autobahn court books,
Yes.
sitting there, and we had known that game existed, and we could have picked it up there.
And known that each other were into RPGs, which we never talked about. We
Yeah.
would have spent a lot of time there doing this.
Oh yeah.
We it would have been an ideal place.
We had a lot of good productive talks. There was really never a time when we went there where it wasn't
No,
time. It was always time well spent. But
it was
imagine
all,
adding that
yeah.
into the mix.
And I don't and we wouldn't have and we wouldn't have played necessarily so much as because even we weren't so geeky as we would have gone to a cafe and played an RPG, but we would have brought our stuff and we would have read and talked and debated and maybe even written.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's you right
Yeah.
on the head.
See, now
Right on
this
the head.
makes me want to get into, well, I'm going to say more of this after our interview. I'm gonna
So
save it because I think
so
that's the other part of the conversation.
yeah, and I was just gonna say, so we're lucky how I really started to get a grasp for Traveler. The basics of it were watching some videos online um, by um, a gentleman named Seth Skorkowsky.
Never heard of him.
And
Kidding.
yeah, kidding.
Everyone's heard of Seth.
And then I started watching those, and then I watched him when he guested on Glass Cannon podcast in it.
Uh-huh.
And then I started watching all of the other videos that he has out there. He is just prolific in his content, and his content is humorous and engaging.
And informative though too.
Yes,
Like I've watched many of his videos so that I can learn about either mechanics or just play in general.
yes. I mean, there's RPG theory, there's good DM practice videos, um, anything related to RPGs. There's something out there in his
Mhm.
content. And you'll hear him even talk about some of the stuff, how he's kind of started into it. And
Mhm.
and so um, you know, we were very lucky that he
Oh
was able to
man.
take the time.
He was so gracious with his time. And once again, especially to our time-limited listeners, we're sorry. We're going to do better. We know we've had a bit of a run with longer episodes, that we've been breaking our new under an hour rule. Fair warning, next week's not going to be, or next episode isn't going to be any shorter, might even be longer. That said, there are just some people with whom you want to keep talking. And Seth, thank you so much because like yeah, and it's a good fit, a good chat when you stop recording and then you just keep going with one another. And like you and I both had to run. We were just
Mhm.
kind of stuck because of schedule. And otherwise, man, Seth, if you're listening to this, we would have just stayed on forever talking to you. Because like we said in the interview, I mean, there are whole topics we didn't get to.
Yeah.
Gravitating to the darker sides of fantasy, Seth Skorkowsky has always preferred horror and pulp heroes over knights in shining armor. When not writing, Seth enjoys cheesy movies, tabletop role-playing games, making YouTube videos, and traveling the world with his wife.
So if I didn't mention it before, I've been a fan of this person that our guests videos for quite a while, and I got completely hooked and binged the Travelers ones.
Oh
Traveler was
yeah.
a late entry
I was hearing
to
about
my
that a
interest.
lot.
Yes. And so, Seth, thank you for joining us,
Yeah,
and
so
thank
much.
you for the content because I wanted to learn Traveler. I looked at it, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to fix this. And this is just one small piece of your larger YouTube and podcast empire.
Oh, well, hey, thank you for having me. And hey, I discovered Traveler very, very late. Yeah, it was basically one of the times where I did read this game, and I had this like, where has this been my whole life? Because I've
Yeah.
been looking for this at trying to make something that for years, and I had no idea. Just it'd been right there the whole time. So no, I get it. Because when I read that, it was very quickly, uh, this is the game we're going to play next. And
That's
I
cool.
get an incredible number of games. I get sent far more games than I could ever read, let alone play.
Hmm.
And Mongoose sent me Traveler to just review, and I gave him my standard spiel of, look, I'm not going to review it unless I play it. I'm not going to play it unless A, we have an opening because we've got our own games that we're doing, and B,
Hmm.
I think it'd be a good fit for us. And
Yeah.
the vast majority of stuff that people send to me, I'm never going to review because I either can't fit it in or look like what my players and I will be excited about. And when I read Traveler, it was just like, oh, hell, this is it. And we just happened to be wrapping up a campaign with a short kind of dally into Conan because we just tried that for a short while. And I was getting ready to start up a Call of Cthulhu game, but I wasn't really sure yet. And I read Traveler and it was like, nope, nope. I have been wanting this game for years and I didn't know what it was called. And here it is. And
What
I love it.
what particularly hooked you?
Um, there's a few things hooked me, but uh, I love the fact it's a skill based game.
Hmm.
I absolutely one of the fastest ways to ever turn me off when somebody's pitching me a game is to start talking about classes, because it
Right.
just, I start kind of blanking out.
Hmm.
Uh, Also, not tied system mechanics are not tied to the universe. And the other problem that a lot of games have is they get so niche, and very rarely do I want to play in the established universe.
Hmm.
Or if I do play in the established universe, I want to know that I don't have to. I want to know it's my choice, and which is
Yeah.
the old punk rocker in me. And but like when you see games that were like, um, The Expanse or Fire, all of those are very tied to
Yeah.
this IP. And Traveler has a seriously huge and elaborate and amazing universe, but you don't have to. It gives you the tools
Hmm.
right there to like
Hmm.
throw the third imperium out the window and just make it up.
Right.
And the other thing I love is it's not one thing. Traveler is a game that is whatever type of sci-fi you want it to be, and you can do that without actually having the rules. Uh,
Hmm.
you, if you want to do, uh, let's say, like a Battlestar Galactica, where you're all on a giant military ship and you're fleeing the skin job androids, you can do it.
Hmm.
If you want to do Star Wars, you can absolutely do Star Wars, no problem. Or you could do Firefly.
Yeah.
If you want to take, if you even want to say like jump drives exist, but we're not actually going to worry about that. We're going to play a whole system in a single, or a whole game in a single system. You could
Right.
do the you could drop the game onto a single planet and say, we're not really
Yeah.
going to worry about the rest of the wider universe. We're just going to play Cyberpunk on this planet, which I would set
Hmm.
on a Fate and the Spinward Marches because that is a planet wide Cyberpunk Night City. So you can do whatever it is that, what type of sci-fi you want. And then when you get other books like the Traveler Companion and some of the JTAS
Hmm.
issues, where it offers you like, hey, you don't want to do a week and you want to do hyperdrives, here's how you can do it.
Right.
We've play tested this and we're giving you absolute permission to make this your universe. And yeah, it not just, GMs, you don't have to try to make it up and hope you don't break anything or that you're
Right.
not playing Traveler. You can, if you want to do instant jumps, here's how we support you and we'll give you assistance. So you can do anything. And that, I love it's got high mortality rate where you don't have a billion hit points. And your hit points are your stats, which is really, really cool. Where, anytime you take damage, you start performing less and less. So
That's
I
cool.
just, there's so much about it I love. We haven't even touched character creation. Jesus, it's wonderful.
Well, I watched initially, and I sent Jason then
Oh
watched right
yeah.
after me, the Glass Cannon episodes of it, and the session zero, in effect, the character creation episode. I was in stitches from that when you all were doing character creation. I was just I that really hooked me between that and your videos. And then the one where you did, I want to go back in a minute, but the one where you did the 3D printing of the ship.
Oh,
I was
that
like,
was awesome.
I really want a 3D printer. I would get in so much trouble if I got one, but I wanted one.
No, the secret is to get a buddy that's addicted to 3D printing because A, he's better at it than I would be. Like he knows all the technical stuff, but two, I don't have to pay for the
Oh,
like
nice.
I'll yeah. The only reason I haven't had a free trader Beowulf printed is physical space to put it. Because it's like, what do I do with this? Like, is it a coffee table? I mean, because it's huge, but every time I look at it, I'm like, man, I really want that thing. It's so cool. We'd have to come up with like, several sessions worth of adventures where they don't leave the ship.
Right.
Yeah, like just adventures while they're in jump space, and that's it.
Like the
That could be
sliding
cool.
little doors to open them
Oh
and
my God, that's
opening.
gorgeous.
I would, it reminded me a lot of like the old Revell models that you get, but so much more.
Without all the little knobby pieces and they don't fall apart, right?
Oh, see, it
Yeah.
makes me think of the GI Joe aircraft carrier.
Oh, the
Oh,
flag,
interesting.
the USS flag.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh my God. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
blast from the past.
Oh, now I want one of those too. I just don't know where I'd put it. Um,
See, that's
This is a real
yeah,
struggle. It's yeah.
yeah. I am known for my somewhat um what's the word? What's the
Spendthrift ways.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
When it comes to books and when Traveler came out, I just
Oh my
started.
God, Seth. I mean, I we'll get off a Traveler in a sec, but
Yeah.
I heard nonstop, and it was a good thing. It was a beautiful thing because I mean it's fascinating, but I heard about Traveler almost daily, better part of a year.
But like you said, it's just such an open world approach. You can go,
Yeah, it is fascinating.
there's that website that where you can look at the galaxy and you can see how small, you know, the playing area was. And I know Mark Miller had said in the past that he didn't want to even create um, a certain area. He wanted everyone to go off and do their own thing.
like the Farivan sector is the game master reserve where he will not, like no one is allowed to set anything there because it is meant to be just wide open for GMs to just knock themselves out.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you would have had people fill all that in. And if game masters want to play in the third period, but they don't want to necessarily play in one of those pre-established things, they wouldn't have anywhere left. So he
Right.
dedicated the Farivan sector as just the GM, preserve. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Travelermap.com is just amazing. The Traveler
yes.
wiki is incredible. And it's when you do stumble into this to that game, and then you see this dedicated fandom that's been going on for 40 years. That's just absolutely
Yeah.
uh, you know amazing.
Hmm.
And God, they still get in their edition wars. It's so it's as bad as any other old game, but like the stuff that they create like that is just astounding. uh and the fact, like with the like you got the 3D Beowulf and you can look at it and you haven't even seen the side of it, but you already know what the inside of that thing's going to look like. And then they open it up, it looks exactly like you thought it was going to look like, or it doesn't look exactly like it. It's better because it's got stuff you hadn't considered.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. We're currently playing Secrets of the Ancients, so I'm expecting that to probably take us the rest of this year if we get
Nice.
through it at lightning speed.
Wow. Wow. So I got it before because we don't have any cool sound effects. Otherwise, I could say like, let's take a walk back in time and we can have like the little chimes or
Yeah,
something like
we're not
that.
going to embarrass anyone and do that.
And
Yeah, we'll move on.
we're low budget. So
Post
um
production, post production.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Our production master is
Yeah,
the gentleman with the
yeah,
hair problem up top. So
yeah.
um that's payback, dude.
Hmm.
Um let's go back and talk about what kind of precipitated you into not
Yeah.
only gaming, but you write too. and you've written a series of novels and short stories. So I don't want to just focus just purely on like travel or something like that, because you have a
You've done
I
a lot.
love your gaming
Yeah.
philosophy videos and all that. Um,
Hmm.
how did you get into just the realm of gaming even before you
Oh,
kind of expanded out?
well, like most kids my age, I grew up during the Satanic Panic. As 60 Minutes and Geraldo and the Oprah Winfrey Show all told me about some game that would drive you insane, which means I absolutely wanted to check that out.
Yeah.
And I I thought D&D was like banned. It was like illegal. You couldn't play it anymore or something. And when I was in seventh grade, I guess the my homeroom at my school had those little that are mostly just stuff to advertise to kids. And it had a full page ad for the black box
Nice.
basic box that was coming out. And it's like, it's back. It had the gorgeous cover. And so my 13th birthday was coming up. That was all I wanted. So I got
Yeah.
the black box, which had like a little adventure you could put yourself through and stuff. And very shortly after that, I was talking to a buddy of mine or like a Boy Scout meeting. And like one of the kids in the troop uh, corrected me on something on elves, and I had never met another D&D player before, and it's
Uh,
because he played advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and all of a
yeah.
sudden I'm like, wait, I'm playing the pedestrian version, and his dad had been running since the 70s, and
Jeez.
we very quickly got a group together that was actually on my Boy Scout troop, and since second edition had just recently come out, didn't want to buy all new books, so he had us plunder used bookstores and garage sales to get first ed stuff. And then we played that, throughout duration of high school, and college rolled around, and I went off to college and kept playing our kind of first slash second edition hybrid. And eventually, after a very, very long time, we started branching further and further out into different games. Cyberpunk was the first big change, where we didn't just our toe in it. We actually made that our primary game.
Nice.
Uh, Played that as our primary game for several years, and then took that system and started making our own games with it. So we had like a medieval fantasy we did with the Cyberpunk interlock rules. We did essentially pulp Cthulhu with
Hmm.
Cyberpunk rules,
Wow.
Okay.
and then uh, I got talked into fifth edition when it released. So we played that for a year. Realized that it just wasn't our jam anymore. And then right then, seventh edition Call of Cthulhu released, and I
Hmm.
read that and got to see what Call of Cthulhu was like if you weren't trying to house rule the whole thing from scratch, and you
Yeah.
actually had experienced people putting it together. And it was like, oh wow, it was way better than what I was doing. And it just kind of grew out from there. So I mean, that's like I don't know, that's like I think 25 years of the history right there.
Wow.
No, no,
So,
that's all.
but what was the jump then into writing? I mean, what motivated that?
I was interested in writing. I did some like writing competitions and stuff when I was younger. When you become a teenager, everything kind of changes on you. I ended up going in the debate team versus creative writing.
Nice.
And I originally was going to go into broadcasting because everybody said I had a good announcer voice. And so I kind of put writing aside until I graduated college, and then I had to move from my little town to the city, which is 20 miles, but it's
Hmm.
still fun to get to see your friends all the time.
Hmm.
And I started writing just as a way to kind of burn all this alone time I suddenly had. And
Okay.
that that led to a couple of short story sales. It took me forever to write a publishable novel. And I've got another novel that no one's ever going to see. It's terrible. And then once the first novel sold, I was able to get which that was Dameron, and then three more in that series. I had some collections of sword and sorcery short stories that a lot of those have been published in magazines for a time, and then we kind of
Nice.
compiled them with some non previously seen stories into these two collections of Adventures of the Black Raven, sort of a Gray Mouser esque thief. And then I ended up doing another novel called Ashes of Onyx that was it's a standalone, and I don't know, it's kind of like my love letter to a lot of the fiction that really inspired me. So it's got
Oh,
like
cool.
Gibson and Clive Barker, and Stephen King, and the little winks at Lovecraft, but it does have a King in Yellow theme, but it's more of the actual Bierce King in Yellow, which predates Lovecraft. And I did that when it's kind of I'm writing this one entirely for me, my
Yeah.
my thing. So I've got one 4 novel series, two short story collection,
Yeah.
Thief series, and then this standalone.
And then,
Are you thinking of? Oh, sorry. I was
no,
just
no,
going
go
to
ahead.
ask. Are you looking to continue?
Yeah.
I know you got book 4. I'd read a while back that you have other projects, but maybe down the road, are you thinking of continuing? Um, you know,
I really I left it open, but with the YouTube channel, which I originally created as a way to help kind of promote my writing, ended up
Oh,
blowing
yeah.
up and kind of blowing past my success as an author. So instead of being an author that does YouTube, I'm a YouTuber that also writes some books. uh, and that has become my major creative outlet, uh, that I do, because so much of the process is the same. It's you're kind of um, alone, and you're kind of putting this stuff together, and you're writing, and you're trying to visualize what you're going to do. That's why my stuff is also very image heavy, and I've got my little characters that I have. And so that ended up being the bigger creative outlet for me. And I
Yeah.
find it a lot less just frustrating than being an author, because when you write a novel, it takes like a year and a half, even after you're done, a year and a half before it hits print. And
Mhm.
because you've got through all the editing, you've gone through all the trying to get the publisher to pick it up, providing you already have an agent, which I do now. But uh, by the time it comes out, you finally get to find out if anybody else thinks it's any good, and you're also so dang sick of it, and then you have to
Yeah.
promote and all this. Well, with the YouTube
That's
channel, like I pretty much in a good rhythm that I do a video every other week, and it takes me about a week to do a video. I work on
okay.
it, I stay up late, I do everything, and then I knock it out there, and then I'm on to something else. It's not like I have to wait 2 years to see if
Right.
anybody thought it was worth a damn.
and I mean, the stuff you put out on YouTube is like creative.
It's
I know.
so good.
I
Yeah.
watched like your Any Award acceptance speech, and some of the stuff like you do black and white, or like I like the Mimic was invented video. In addition to not only playing, but your discussions around, you know, um, like RPG theory
Yeah.
and so on, and that you offer so much. How do you come up with the ideas for the content that you
Especially
put
every
out?
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Um, I've had a file that is basically just this Word doc that's called video ideas. Um, because I'll go through periods where I come up with a lot of them very, very short, just got them there. And some of
Yeah.
them are like a sentence. And then others I'll occasionally open up and I'll fill in a little bit more details for it, or whatnot. So if I'm not really sure what to talk about, or I feel like I've talked about one thing too much recently, I'll kind of pop that open to
Hmm.
uh, see what else is there. And there's some stuff that's been there for years. It's just I don't have enough to dedicate a video to it, but I eventually
Right.
do want to talk about this. Uh, and then sometimes I'll just skip it all together because I had inspiration to do something else. But a lot of it, by the time I'm ready to do it, I mean, I can literally pull out like all of my major talking points. So like when I do my videos, I've got
Okay.
like a slide that shows like the 6 points that support whatever theory it is. Those were usually the little half sentences that were written right next to a
Right.
topic title, and then just a couple little, hey, mention this, sort of thing. So, and I said there's periods where I will think of a lot of stuff in kind of niches. Like I used to do a lot of like, types of player videos, like list videos. I don't do those very much
Hmm.
because I can expand those out into larger, but it's also because that's just not where I guess my mind is
Hmm.
anymore. So I've still got like, I don't know, like 20 types of players that just like one day I'll pull them, do something with them, but it just
The
doesn't, didn't interest me the same way.
the videos, I most enjoy are, maybe unsurprisingly, the ones where you're at the table with your different characters, right? Your different personas. And I get a kick out of that every time. What was the genesis of that? I mean, was that was that organic? Was that initially like very, very intentional? Because that's got to just be a ton of time and prep on your end.
It was completely accidental. Um, so early on in like the first, I guess, 4 5 months of my channel, I did a video that I've since taken down because it was a bad video, but it was over five good, five bad characters that good players make, or something. And one of them I wanted to cover was what's what we call and have called for 20 something years the 13th Warrior, which is the character that doesn't fit into whatever the pre agreed theme of the game
Hmm.
was. And where that name came about is in like 2003, I guess, when we came up with this is just the term we use, was a kind of hypothetical of Michael Crichton pitching a D&D game to his players about they're going to be Vikings, they're going to do all this Viking stuff. And there's like this one guy's like, I want to be an Arab poet. And it's like, well, we're going to be this Viking game. And so I wanted to kind of show that because my friends and I kind of like laughingly played that out for years. I had long hair at the time, so I just let my hair down, put a baseball cap on backwards, put on an old Ramones shirt, and I gave it kind of a surfer bro voice. And I just kind of went back and forth
Right.
with the GM. And it was kind of fun. And I stuck a couple other skits in that video too, because it was kind of fun to do those. And that kind of ended up being something I would do as examples for a lot of those like kind of
Right.
player GM type interactions. And he didn't even have a name. He was just player. And then one day I wanted to do a skit where I needed the player to talk to other players. And so I'm like, okay, I need to come up with like two others. And I'm actually a really terrible actor. So I need them to be very far extremes because I can do extremes.
Hmm.
And there, I went to like a Party City little party place or something. And there was like this,
Yeah.
I guess for a kid's birthday party, the disposable mustache goatee combo was for like a bandito.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, sweet, two costumes. And so I got that and I stuck the goatee on one, I stuck the mustache on the other, and gave them some kind of, their own cartoony voices. And, by starting kind of where they sat, I kind of established their different backgrounds. And I did that. And then that was fun. So I did that for a while. I still hadn't named them. There's some old videos where I called them player one, player two, and player three.
Hmm.
And I didn't realize that was a thing. That was like a thing that I did. Like I didn't think of it as like one of my things I'm known for.
Right.
But then I started having so many people ask what their names were. I was like, oh crap, I need to commit to these guys.
Yeah.
So, and one commenter had actually come up with his own names because I wouldn't do it. And like so he called Dweebles Dweebles. And I'm like, that's better than anything I could do. So a fan actually named Dweebles. And there was a meme, I still see it sometimes, that pops up on like Facebook or whatnot. Of it's a sign outside of some like little club or something that just says like lightsaber night is canceled tonight. Thanks, Todd. And as since Todd was always like my bad player example, but that's
Right.
perfect. So that's where Todd came from. Was this meme of lightsaber night being canceled, and somehow Todd was to blame, I guess. And I don't know. Mike's name just happened.
That's funny.
And so that kind of grew into a thing I did. And had I known I was committing to these, like I wouldn't have done Dweebles' hair like that. I would have just given him a freaking hat. And like because both of them are like, where's some shirts I don't even wear anymore? Like I have like this really awful shirt that I've had in my closet for 20 years. Like has like these little tribal patterns on it from like the 90s.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I'll wear that one because it's significantly terrible.
Yeah.
I just give them my over the top kind of like little nerdy lisp voice that I do when I'm talking to my friends. And so they just kind of happened.
It's
And
cool.
and it's just yeah, I see a lot of other channels, they come in with that in mind. Like, wow, look at that foresight planning. I didn't do any of that.
Seems to have worked out all right for you.
Yeah.
I've made do.
Yeah. That's incredible.
How did you connect with the folks at Glass Cannon? Um, to guests and everything like that. And in all honesty, like I said at the outset, I just that session, that character creation episode, just when you were going through and rolling and making that, and obviously they were kind of all leaning on you just because you had some experience with it. Um, how did you connect with them on it?
So Glass Cannon sent me a notification one day. I get lots of weird emails, and they had, I guess, picked up or combined with another podcast called like Streams of Blood or something. So it was like a
Right.
press release. As I didn't think much of it. I don't really pay attention to the live plays, so I have no idea who these people
Yeah.
are. And then they like followed, or they followed up or something. And I just kind of sent like, hey, sorry, I really don't do RPG news or any of that, but sorry. And I think it was Troy reached out and wanted to do some Call of Cthulhu, and he liked my Call of Cthulhu stuff. They originally asked if I'd be willing to run it, and I'm like, mm, I've never actually run a streamed game, and
Yeah.
I've done some podcasts with it, but that's where we could also like pause if we weren't on camera. It's
Right.
a different
Right.
thing. And I'm like, I've never even like that's not my wheelhouse. So I'm like, no, I'm not comfortable running one. That I dodged a bullet because I think about 3 minutes into our very first game, I was like, oh, thank God I couldn't handle these people. Like Troy is a god for keeping these people like in a direction, like because they're improv actors,
Right.
is what many of them are. So I came on as a guest and we played a game of Call of Cthulhu called Intimate Encounter. That was like about a 5 hour session. They split up into 2 episodes. And one of their guys, Skid, is
Mhm.
a huge Traveler fan. He'd been playing Traveler for years. So he was very excited to talk Traveler with me. And one of the other guys, Matthew, is like just a big sci-fi dork. And Skid
Mhm.
had finally talked him into Traveler. Uh, and Matthew had watched some of my stuff to learn how to run. I guess they ran a game of High and Dry once. And so because I played with them with that Hulu game and we got along great, when Matthew said he wanted to put together a Traveler campaign, he reached out and I was like, absolutely. Because I had been running Traveler at that point for like, I guess a little over a year, but I had never
Mhm.
actually played it as a player.
Interesting.
So like the very first episode where like we're making characters is technically the first time I've ever played it.
Wow.
Like without being behind the screen. So that was uh but that was fun. So we've done 2 seasons of that. Hopefully they greenlight us for our season 3. Uh, Probably. I don't know. There's always behind the scenes stuff I'm not aware of. So I'll just sit on my phone and hope it rings.
If you, like you had said, um, you have a backlog of games and stuff that you just cannot get to because of everything going on. Um, from obviously we've talked about Traveler. We haven't dug deep enough into Cthulhu. I'm fascinated by the game. Chaosium is a company bringing back RuneQuest and everything like
So many
that.
games.
Yeah, and my bookshelf, I only am allowed a certain amount of space on a bookshelf, and I have long since run out of space.
Yeah.
So I have secret stashes everywhere. Luckily, my wife doesn't listen, so I can say that.
Not at all.
Um, but is there something sitting out there that
Yeah.
it kind of calls to you and you kind of want to get to it at some point, maybe sooner than something else?
Um right now, because I'm mostly just focused on like what game we're doing. So I only start getting the wandering eye once the end is in sight. I
Yeah.
would like to be able to have some more time to get back to Cult. That's actually a game that we've been playing a campaign of for a while. Then life got in the way, and I really deeply wanted it because we were loving it.
Yeah.
Um, but no real game systems that I just really want to try. I would like to try Blade Runner by Free League.
Interesting.
I'd
Yeah.
like to try. Actually, I don't as much want to try it. I can't wait for my buddy to run it, so I get off his butt and run it. Vasen by Free League. I'd like to check
Yes.
that out. Uh, yeah, I'd like to play a little bit more Alien, uh, but
Hmm.
side things versus what I would want to have be like our what I consider a primary type game, where we will play this until we wear the wheels out. Um, so yeah, right now if we're doing Traveler, we're doing a long form campaign, which
Mhm.
I haven't really run many of those in my life. I usually just kind of do a bunch of different scenarios kind of strung together to make our campaigns. Have I done the pick up the 200 plus page
Yeah.
campaign that's multi-chapter? And the very first one of those I did was I did a Linkmar one when I was in high school, which worked about as well as a high school D&D game does, and then was Two-Headed Serpent for Pulp Cthulhu years later. And then I've stretched modules out into campaigns, but the idea of the pre-written campaign, I've actually only ever done Serpent and then the one that we're doing right now.
Interesting.
So yeah, a lot of them I would love to check out. I just know that I get a wandering eye, and it's like, man, what if we're like a year into this 2 year thing and decide it sucks? Or
Right.
what if the characters die on me? Like come up with new characters halfway through that are supposed to care, and like, yeah, and with doing Odic the way that we normally do it, I can scratch whatever itch I have very quickly.
Hmm.
If like, what I want to do, let's do a heist. Okay, cool. Next game, we're gonna do a heist. Okay, what do I want to do? I was like, let's go. We'll do a haunted carnival. Sweet, we'll do a haunted carnival. And that's it. Versus if you do the long form campaign, it's kind of like
Yeah.
established long beforehand, and there isn't as much of the wiggle room. So it's kind of like my ADHD brain rejects those, but we're
Hmm.
trying. We're trying one, and it's I went actually read a lot of campaigns before I decided on this one, and it's because every adventure in it is a different theme. Yeah,
Oh,
like
interesting.
that will satisfy that part of me that
Yeah.
always has to have something different. Oh yeah, it's like it's an espionage one, high role play, running from the law, and then prison break, and then you traveling to other universes and other times, and everything in between. Where it's like it's 10 adventures, and each one is very different than the
That's
other
cool.
nine. I was like, that's what I want. Is I want each one to feel different and scratch different itches. And when my players are originally asking like what skills would be important, and I kind of really thought about it. I'm like, I think the only skill that you do not need for this entire thing is like sailing. And all of them?
Minus sailing.
Yeah.
Minus
And I
that.
was like,
Don't waste that. Yeah.
like seriously, guys, in any skill at some point is going to be really, really, really handy. So
Wow.
just knock yourselves out. I would really appreciate it if one of you had like some of the sciences, because those will be. I think it'll be worse if nobody has that, and so it kind of gets that the diversity I have to something new all the time
Yeah. How
itch, which has
how
allowed me to.
how big is your table for a game like that? How many sit there?
Um, we started with four,
Hmm.
and we actually did character creation. We did a first adventure with the four that was kind of like, let's get used to these characters and let's
Hmm.
get ourselves back in the system, because it's been like a year and a half since we played
Hmm.
Traveler. We just come off of like Pulp Cthulhu
Hmm.
Lord of the Blades, and right at the right before the first session of the actual campaign, a good friend of ours actually had lost his group due to like life and moving away, as he kind of
Hmm.
gave me the puppy dog eyes and asked if he could maybe join. And I was like, ah, crap. So we brought in a fifth one right at the last second. Yeah, after months of prep, he was like, okay, wild card. And play a Traveler. So uh, that's so we've got five players and
Okay.
myself.
Yeah.
And because just life's the way it is. Sometimes we'll have all five. I have a minimum of three. And if we got one or two down, cool, we'll still go.
Okay.
And because my players, I had two people down for one game. I was like, guys, I was originally going to run this with four, which means three would have been my minimum with five, but three is still going to be my minimum. And we're just going to plow through because if we have to wait for full perfect attendance every time, we'll never play.
Right.
So
Yeah.
You've written, I just, those, because we're an audio cast, they can't see it, but behind you, you have a traveler in the frame. And I don't know if that's the most recent one you did. I know people could
Oh.
see it on Drive Through RPG. They could pick up the PDF for some of your gaming, including that latest Traveler that came out.
yeah, I so when my first novel came out, yeah, we did like the book release party. My friends got the advanced copies of it, and they went to a framer and they had to put in a shadow box. And it was presented to me at the official book launch party. And ever since that, I've actually stuck all of my stuff that's been published in frames boxes. So what you see behind me, I'm looking at as a wall of other stuff, and then I've got like a couple
Oh,
novels on this wall here, and one over on this other wall here, and the RPG stuff ended up in the spot behind me on this
Funny.
okay.
little narrow gap between windows. So what you're looking at there is Mysteries on Arcturus Station, which was it's a two adventure book because I kind of instigated Mongoose re-releasing an old classic adventure called Murder in Arcturus Station. I read it and I thought it was brilliant, but then I wrote a prequel to it. So it's like a two adventures. One of them I wrote, and the other
Nice.
I updated the 1982 or so version to the current edition. And then above that is a Call of Cthulhu collection that I was in called New Tales, the Miskatonic Valley, that won the Emmy Award for its electronic version did. But so I've got the
Nice.
hardback and a shadow box back there. So all of my stuff that gets a physical printing, I will
Yeah.
frame and put up,
That's
except
great.
for a couple that are like two. Uh, so like the Mongoose Death Station is only electronic, so it will be on my wall. But it's kind of a sample of my kind of wall to my accomplishments
Yeah,
sort of thing.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. It's such a good idea.
My podcast partner John Hook, who has written tons and tons of stuff. Like the first time we saw, it, I was like, "Oh wow, I needed like so like yeah, dude, you're gonna fill up an entire wall because he's been writing for Dungeon Call Classics and Call of Cthulhu for
Right.
probably 20 years,
Wow.
and so he's got tons of stuff. But it's
Mhm.
just I guess on a shelf gathering dust versus like on display of these things he's made.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
there's
didn't
a
want to minimize.
that's
I just
cool.
it just caught my attention right behind your headphones. And of course, I didn't want to turn this into um, you know, only a traveler discussion, but it's just I
It is a cool
like
game.
like Jason said, I'm a little bit on the obsessed side for it with it, and I'm down away from home, and so I don't have access to my books. So I see that I'm just longing to get back up into the library.
Okay, one more question. This is I because we never want to ask anything spoilerish. So we'll make this fantastical. If money were no option, right? It's just no option. You can do whatever the heck you want. Is there anything with your YouTube channel? Like we're thinking like far future, right? If there's anything with your YouTube channel, like if there were any way to make it feasible, it would be so much fun to do this. And I'm not really thinking topic. I'm like, would you would you do something that just is out of reach right now for whatever reason?
Um, if I was going to ask for the moon and the
Yeah.
stars,
Yeah.
uh, I would love to make essentially a I don't know like interactive movie where the gang
Interesting.
has to I don't know find that their game master who's missing or something. Where like you've got the ball coming together, so they have to interact with one another. Like so you have to have like moving cameras and stuff. So it's more than just me alone in a game room, which is kind of sad when you think about it. But to do like a full on kind of almost Call of Cthulhu sort of adventure, but to where, at certain chapter points, you get to make the decision like, do you go left or right? And then I could have it where the viewer would choose the next video to do the path. So you'd first have to write it like almost a choose your own adventure with multiple
Right.
paths and is it leading back on itself without it suddenly being obvious that you're leading back on yourself, sort of thing. Um, plus, uh, like budget and true effects and actual
Right. Right.
camera,
Right.
and the whole thing, and like you know, well muscled body doubles, and
Higher
that way Todd
ILM
can have
for
a six
special
pack.
effects and
Oh, but then who's going to be able to relate to it?
and, and so something like that, because I've wanted to for a couple of years to
Serious.
do some sort of uh thing where like I could do a game where it's like a one-on-one with the GM and one of the players, but the viewer gets to choose which direction things go. Um, I have tried to do rough maps of it out, and it quickly slowly becomes like, okay, so I have to have like 50 videos that are all 5 minutes and be able to link them this way because I can only link so many videos to one video.
Right.
But if I want to do it like that uh, style, you have to be able to have it go off to dead ends, and you have to be able
Right.
to have like different things that could happen, as well as decide what would constitute a choice that would cause you to go this way or that. And then
Interesting.
when you land there, what could I do that could occupy a couple minutes worth of view time before the thing happens? And probably I'll just get into one of my little creative fever dreams and map it out. Uh, but that is something I would love to do. And if I had unlimited money, I would actually make it like a little movie with the
Yeah.
three players running around trying to solve the thing. I would also have it where they're in black and white and the rest of the world is color. Uh,
see,
like,
that's cool.
Interesting.
Kind of like the 80s Clue movie. I don't know if you remember that, where there were
Oh,
multiple endings
yeah,
that came out.
yeah.
yeah, and like also people ask like, why do you do the black and white and stuff?
Yeah.
Because so my costumes are so bad that one, it is so people that don't believe, like, so people get fooled into thinking those are other people instead of just me clearly wearing the cheapest mustache in the world that was meant to be worn at one time at a kid's birthday party, and I'm going on like 6 years with it. Um, but the white or the sepia tones that'll do for like Jack really do trick you. And the other reason is when I first started doing the skits, I needed some way to differentiate. Like I felt like I needed
Right.
to really establish this is a cut from whatever is me just sitting there talking about whatever the topic is. Uh, and now I've seen other YouTube videos that do it. Like, oh yeah, that wouldn't have been a problem, but I had already been well established. It's like it's black and white. Um,
Yeah.
but
That's cool though.
even when I see the footage that's all in full color, it is so ridiculously me. So I think the people that get tricked and really enjoy watching these characters interact, I think what helps fool them is
Yeah.
that black and white tone.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
it's a visual thing too. It's almost like you're stepping in, like
Absolutely.
Last Action Hero. You're kind of stepping into a different world when you watch them that way, versus you know
Well, I mean,
some of your other great content.
this is farcical. Welcome to my farce. Sit down and learn, and then we'll come back and talk. I mean, it works. It makes a lot of sense.
And it's one of those things where it was originally designed as like I just want to illustrate some little gag, and then I'll try to come up with ways to use some that push it forward. But then if I did one point where I didn't use them at all. And then at the closing part, I always have one of them kind of roll the outro, like like, subscribe, et
Uh-huh.
cetera, et
Uh-huh.
cetera. But always ends with this like stupid gag of like as if they're done, and they kind of go, and they just start talking, and it's usually like a little zinger. Is what those are. And bitch is like, you didn't use this, and because I had actually gotten to the end of writing the script, I realized I hadn't used them, and I was like, I'd rather use you when you can actually like help point that I'm making versus feeling like I should just needlessly use you. Because I know a lot of people come in, they're expecting it, but it's like, if I can't use them in a way that I think makes the video better or makes my point better, I would rather not use them. So it's one of those, like, I'm encouraged to, but at the same time, I have to like keep myself from making kind of these cringe videos that people have to muscle through 2 minutes of me being a dork to get back to the interesting part. Um,
Fair. Mm.
it's kind of a balance because I do have to go out of my way to remember to like come up with something I could use to illustrate this point or just some stupid joke. Because then it's kind of spread off to I'll do my war stories where I'm trying to recreate a game sometimes from 20 years before
Mm.
of, and that one I'm actually just narrating it the whole time. So then I have to cut to them acting like they're playing, which means I've also just shot like 3 solid minutes sitting in each position, acting like I'm playing and laughing at jokes and just doing a bunch of reactions. And it's like, I'll edit this together into something remotely meaningful once
Man.
you get around to it. But I'm literally just making faces for whatever I might need it for. And then, splice all that together with a couple lines they'll deliver. Then it goes back to me narrating. Or I've done just videos that were just solid skits
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
were just, I don't know, they were just stupid because I thought they'd be fun. Like I did one where it's like about use a rubber chicken's foot to get rid of a dice curse. And I did it like some really cheesy infomercial, like the Sham Wow, but it was about a rubber chicken's foot. And then you mentioned the history of the beholder and the history of the mimic, which that was I came up with the beholder one. I remember very clearly. I was opening up the fridge and I started doing that, like that Coke fueled Gygax. If it for guts, they got a butthole. And I thought it was so funny. And then I had to figure out what in the hell I was talking about. And I actually was convinced that when I published that, I was going to get so much blowback for that portrayal of the unnamed Wisconsin cobbler, who's clearly a coke fiend with a bad comb over and thick glasses and a wild man beard, and just who knows. Uh, and what's funny is like no one ever no one ever got onto me for that. I think everybody understood where it was coming from. I even
That's
had
cool.
oh, I'm blanking his name because we're talking and being recorded at the moment. The guy that actually did invent the beholder, who I actually named
Oh.
in the video as the actual one. I can almost see his name, but I can't quite grasp it. He actually came on and commented, kind of laughing
Oh,
about it, which
That's great.
kind of like Kuntz. Ted Kuntz came on and
Oh my
said,
God.
like, yeah, that's exactly what happened, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude,
you
I
just
can't believe you're
validated it.
here. So,
That's so cool.
Hey, before we go, really thank you so much for
Oh
joining us.
man.
We've kind of kept you longer than we probably told you we would.
Yeah.
no.
We'll have in the show notes your website, your YouTube channel,
All the stuff. Yeah.
yeah, all of it. And for all listening, you got to check it out. I'm telling you,
Oh
look at
yeah.
the your YouTube channel is just so
Just
phenomenally
everything.
diverse.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
I
everything you do, Seth. I mean,
Oh,
so much of
yeah.
what you do is it's fun, but it's an on-ramp for those of us who want to get into some of this stuff. And like you've talked about tonight, it's foreign to us right until we see it.
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's one of those things when you start a YouTube for RPGs, you've got to make a couple choices very quickly to kind of establish what you are, and it also takes a while to kind of find your own voice, which it takes most creators. It took me like 7-8 months to really find my perfect groove, but I always wanted to talk about a diversity of games, and I didn't want to talk about the same game like 2 videos in a row. Is and then kind of talk about the overall thing. And it also just like I didn't ever want to focus really. I don't want to focus too much on the negative.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of sites that uh, channels that really become like very focused on negative things.
Yeah.
And yeah, my problem is I I just didn't want to be angry. I wanted to I'm a middle-aged dude who every once in a while sits around with my friends and we play imagination time with a bunch of 3D printed toys. I mean, it's like how serious can we really take ourselves, guys? I mean,
Right.
if we only had that, I mean, in the 80s, and if we only knew where we would be right now with everything that's going on. It's just such a cool time
That's a great
to
time for RPGs. Oh my God.
yeah, it's kind of Jason, you said it, I don't want to hijack it, but it's kind of a golden era for gaming, and your content makes it, like Jason was saying, accessible for even those of us
Hmm.
who are relatively new or
Hmm.
returning, that just don't know everything out there. We haven't even gotten into Call of Cthulhu tonight. So if at some point you're
A lot more to
interested, we'd
do.
love to have you back to
Oh,
talk through some of
Oh
that.
yeah.
oh man, I will
So
talk your ear off on that one because
Your
thumbs
I
up.
love
Gale.
No one can
Traveler,
see
but
it, you know.
Call of Cthulhu is actually my number one game.
Wow.
See,
So
yeah,
that's
we didn't mean to glance over it, but it was just, it's kind of our excuse to have you back if you're willing, just because
I can do it.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's one of, even Cthulhu is one of those games I love to read. So thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Seth, as we said before the drop for the interview, thank you so much for spending, possibly wasting time with us. It really was a treat to chat with you. And again, apologies that we couldn't stay on longer. We really look forward to having you back on. There's so much we didn't cover from your wealth of information, your wealth of knowledge. Now, that said, and this will, I think, surprise you, Brad. I blame Seth. So I have never spent any time at all looking into Cthulhu of any flavor.
Mm.
I've go on. I'm not a Lovecraftian kind of person. I mean, jokes aside, like, and of course his unfortunate side aside, but that whole broad genre really just doesn't resonate or interest me. However, as our listeners heard, we spent a lot of time with Seth talking about and around Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And so in the days after we spoke with him, uh, it got me thinking, I need to be more open. So I'm going to investigate, no pun intended, but I'm going to investigate Cthulhu a bit. So I went to Glass Cannon and I I don't rem oh yeah, and because I'm well, it used to be Patreon, but because I'm a subscriber supporter, I can access all of the back catalog. And so I listened to the two long episodes from a couple years back, I think, where Seth was at the table and Troy was leading a modern Cthulhu. And so over like the week after we recorded with Seth, which was just a couple ago, or a few ago as this drops, I spent like 6 hours between those two episodes listening. And two things I'll say about that. One, kudos to Glass Cannon, all of those guys and gals, because I've been listening for a long time, but those two episodes were some of the most hilarious of any of theirs I've heard.
You've been telling me that for a couple days.
I have, and I stand by it. But I really got hooked. I really got hooked into this modern Cthulhu. I loved the mystery, the investigation, and I loved how, yeah, it was a little pulpy, which is funny,
Mhm.
but in a funny way, and how it had, and I don't know how intentional this was, but it had a very kind of science fiction-y, paranormal Spielberg kind of feel to it. And I did not expect that. So, Seth, and obviously everyone at GCN, but Seth, thank you for introducing, because had we not spent so much time talking with you about how cool it can be, I wouldn't have taken that step. And I honestly, truly enjoyed the Cthulhu aspect. And that really surprised me.
You know, Green Ronin, Modifius have versions of it in some form or another, different arenas. Chaosium obviously is the Call of Cthulhu owner. I have a number of books from that. The one thing that I didn't get from the books and I maybe should have, but I didn't. But Seth summed it up very succinctly, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it was something to the effect of it's more of a mystery game.
Yeah, he did. He did.
It is more of, and that really changed, in effect, my perception of it. We don't
Ditto.
have to. It's a, and for us, we love a good. I mean, any of the games that we play, whether it's in the Trek Wars, whatever universe, are mysteries. We're trying to unravel something.
Hmm. Hmm.
So um, it spurred my interest. Now I'm as we record this, I'm a week away from heading back home, so I don't have any of my material with me down here. But it does, I have some of the PDFs um, from purchases, and I do think that I'll spend some time reading it when I get back, just because it got kind of the creative juices flowing a little bit to think about it. Doesn't mean we're
Yeah.
going to game
Yeah.
it right now,
Don't have
but
to. So much of
but
this is good reading.
oh yeah, it's really good, and some of the stories are good reading. There's even a really well done guide for playing solo.
Yeah.
Um, so
Let's see.
yeah, I am so glad that we talked about that just beyond Traveler as much as
Yeah, because we were
I'm a
not
fan.
planning that. That was all Seth, and that was just the organic nature of how we chat with people. And
Yeah,
and this one really, yeah, this it was eye-opening.
yeah. So let's head on over to Audubon Court, grab our tea, sit down. We tended to have one of two tables that we frequented. One that would kind of sit back towards the register for tea and on the edge where it would cross from
Good
tea shop into
memory.
bookstore.
Yes.
And then there was another one that was right toward the window, right on
Yep.
the edge of the window. That tended to be our day spot when we would go during the day because we would get the sun. And
Man, good memory, Brett. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
and the evening spot was where we would kind of sit back because, to be quite honest with you, there was kind of, I think we've mentioned this before, there was kind of a creepy guy that is unnervingly probably the age that we are now, but was
Yeah, that's
always
sadly true.
yeah. But the difference is we don't sit at a bookstore by ourselves talking to people that are probably twice or half their age.
Not even
Um,
and women
yes,
while wearing a trench coat. None of it
yes,
was good.
no.
Now that we've creeped out most of our
Yeah,
audience,
yeah. Luckily, that doesn't add the e tag
yeah.
to the thing,
But it
but
does fit the Cthulhu vibe.
yeah, the trench coat of the whole thing.
Yes.
Okay, so going back, what are you bringing to the table to
Yeah,
talk
so
about this week?
yeah, thanks. So this is this is gonna blow your mind.
Okay,
I did something really rare the other week.
do we have to add an e tag to this?
E for excitement.
Okay.
Uh I actually role played. I actually gamed.
Oh, I knew that you did that.
Yeah,
Yes,
so yeah, because you kept trying to Zoom bomb us.
yes.
So
Yeah. Wait. Thanks for
we
letting me in, jerk.
yep, you're welcome. I'm like, nope,
Okay.
nope, nope. We had just started and I'm getting texts from you, a FaceTime call. You tried to log
That
in.
was actually
Did you butt
um
dial me again?
yeah, that
Okay.
was an inadvertent dial.
Oh,
I
smooth.
just messaged because originally Saturday I wasn't going to be able to play.
Yeah,
We had been out here. I
yeah.
came home way too late for me to sit and play because I'm an hour
Oh,
ahead of
yeah,
you
yeah,
all,
absolutely.
and I was tired.
You've had a
But
full, yeah, you've had a
getting
full
back
three
to that,
weeks.
you
So
did some gaming.
I did some gaming so that everyone knows the context here briefly. So you and I, and then our friend Aaron, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Peterson, Dr. Aaron Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
We have been planning to play Star Trek Adventures. And I've got a whole sandbox set up, and my God, am I jonesing to play that with you guys. I cannot tell you. And
Yeah,
we've been
after
trying.
next weekend, then
I
things
know. Yeah,
will.
no, no worries. I know you with your visit, with your family visit, you've had a very shifting schedule. And
Yeah,
shifting, not shifty. And so we rescheduled a couple times and you just couldn't do it. And I thought, well, I still want to play, and I know Aaron wants to play, and then of course my cousin Heidi, I know she's wanted to pick up a game again because we all did that. We were as being mildly creepy on the monitor, which is yet another reason why we're an audio only podcast. Um, and so I pivoted, and I GM'd for Aaron and Heidi, and we played D&D. And it
Nice.
was I had taken some stuff I had
Didn't you play
prepped.
like 2 hours? Was
Um,
it?
no, I actually kept it to about an hour and a half. I was
Okay.
pretty, I really, I wanted to get upstairs. Yeah, uh, I needed to get back to the boys, her sons. So, we were on for maybe close to 2 hours, but we kept it to like an hour and a half gaming.
Because by the time you messaged me back, I was pretty well out for the night.
Mhm.
And it felt like it was 2 hours from when you said you were starting.
Oh, I
So
mean, it could have been. It could have.
you might have, it
I was,
just might have taken
yeah.
time between when you ended and you messaged me.
So, I won't get into the specifics, but I think everyone had a good time. I had a lot of fun. Um, uh, the other two, they are very novice at RPGs and at D&D certainly. But we'd all, like you and Aaron and I had played a couple sessions about a year ago.
Yep.
And so we kind of started anew with the same characters. We were all insistent, they were especially insistent that uh anytime you want to roll a little D&D, we can very easily insert your PC into the story.
The
It's
Bard.
very the bard.
Okay.
Oh God, that would actually be so good for this. So I'm just kind of coming up with this little adventure, but I'm using a bunch of IP
Okay.
for both backstory pieces for sorry, world building and visuals. And then I'll just leave it with this. Two things. One, uh going back to Cthulhu and our chat with Seth, as we were like I don't think either of them listened, so I can say this. Uh I was trying to play it off so that they'd have a good time as like this is all planned. But like I was really just riffing the whole thing after some real basic foundational stuff to
That's
see
what
where
makes
they
it
want,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
to see where they want to go, truly sandbox it on top of some IP. And I came up with, oh, I've got an investigation for them. I know, which I
Ah,
don't think I've ever really done. I mean, well, okay, I suppose we've all done bits and pieces, but like this is an actual like find someone kind of thing. The other
yeah.
thing I'll say, and Jim and Al and Michael and the others, I hope you're listening because uh this really taught me something. I finished GMing D&D, and I thought right away, hung up and I thought right away, that was a lot of fun. And it makes me want to play Star Trek Adventures even more. So it's like, so when
Really?
yeah, I've got so much ready as a
Oh,
world building,
because of what you've developed for the
it,
game.
and I just want to play it. And I just
Got it.
not what I've done so much as I like we've got enough of a sandbox to roll now, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And I just, like you, I absolutely love the game and the world. And after you and I played those several sessions,
Yeah.
like I'm all in to the like I went to bed, how sad is that, thinking of actually 2D20 is a real improvement over the older mechanic.
Well, yeah, you've played because now you've really had some experience, both kind of GMing both systems. And they're good system. It's not a
Yeah,
knock,
they're
but
different. It's fun.
the nuanced approach to
Yeah. The
2D20.
sophistication with STA is just, yeah.
I can't, because I'm traveling, I don't, or because I'm staying with my family down here, I don't really have anything new from a book perspective. And I think the fact that you gamed is would top anything else that I could come up with for the corner, just because I think that's phenomenal that you had the time for it. And to add to that, I watched some. I was waiting to get back up there to do it, but I started doing a little bit of binging of my semi-annual DS9 run.
Yes, good.
And as someone who never felt in the day like Star Trek could handle being on a space station versus being a ship, um,
Yeah.
you know me, I adore
Yeah.
DS9.
Yeah.
The fact that the little that you've told us about what you're planning for us with STA involves a space station.
Yes, it does.
Um, just, I mean, you couldn't have developed something that would interest me greater than playing STA with a space station involved, even whether it's tertiary or primary. So,
It's
that being said,
primary and it's got 4 promenades for your gaming pleasure.
Yeah, see, let's leave it at that, because
Yeah.
the fact that you get to do some gaming and there's further gaming coming up after next weekend when I get home.
Yes.
Um, I think that that's the topper to the cake for the week, other
Yeah.
than the fact that we had this phenomenal guest on.
Yeah. So you know the deal, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks as always for listening.
Oh,
We've got, oh, what?
how do you
Oh,
end a
I'm not there
podcast?
yet. I
Okay,
I I
okay,
I won't leave you hanging here, my friend.
okay,
I
good.
was just gonna say I just want to say we've got some familiar faces, or I should say voices, coming back to the podcast in the coming weeks. We've got some brand new ones. We're really trying to focus what motivates us, but also talking to an increasingly broad range of people. So hopefully as spring or fall, wherever you happen to be on this wonderful planet, approaches, you'll stay there with us. And everybody, we don't say this enough, and that's on me. And Brad and I need to get into the habit of doing so. If you like what you're hearing, please give us 5 stars wherever you're listening. We haven't done that in forever, but the podcast is growing. It's really growing, and we think we have some of the most lovely, interesting people in the business who are coming on to Dice and Mind. So if you like what you're hearing, really seriously, recommend us to your friends. Give us that 5 star rating. We would love to hear what you have to say, and we really mean that, whether it's through Apple, whether it's on Podbean, whether it's through our email. Don't Everything's in the show notes. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you're a creator, if you're a creative, and you want to chat with us on the show, reach out. We are always interested to talk to people. So with that, be well, stay well. We will see you in a couple weeks.